Hello, and welcome to week three of the online result-based monitoring and evaluation course delivered by Cloneshouse, Nigeria. I still remain myself. Oludotum Babayemi is my name. Again, I'm an evaluator, I've actually introduced myself on the first week, but I think it's also proper to just do a dive in. This is the third week, which takes us halfway to the 6 weeks of this course. It's been quite interesting seeing all your tasks and comments on each classroom. So I'd like to say welcome to week three, and in week three we'll focus definitely on data analysis. Just to quickly do a recap of what we've done in week one. Yes, we looked at the difference between result-based monitoring and evaluation and traditional evaluation, also looking at the difference between monitoring and evaluation. We were able to develop a theory of change for the case studies that we're working on. Also, that yes, we are able to assign result chains to them and also identify key indicators that will be useful to each of our case studies. In week two, we introduced ourselves to data and the different types of data that we have, and also moved to discussing quantitative and qualitative data collection methods. And on the last part of week two, we did sampling and sampling methods, looking at different kinds of ways we could create sampling from our population. So what we've tried to do is actually, yes, have a project. For that particular project, what we've been able to do is to develop a theory of change for it, create indicators for it, and then define data collection methods that we're going to use for the indicators. So this week, what we'll do is now use the instruments that we've developed to do an analysis of the responses we got from just a sample of our beneficiaries, and I mean in an hypothetical format, but also being practical about it. So this week we would start with how to plan our instruments to analyze effectively, because most of us think that at the stage of analysis we now start doing editing and all that, but it's important that we are able to plan the instruments that we have properly before it gets into analysis, so that we don't get into analysis and start going back and forth and removing one question and all that. I mean, this happens to us actually in real life, but there are some things we should have done in order to reduce that, or not to make that happen at all. So afterwards, planning data analysis, then we would, the second part of this week will be to analyze. We'll do an analysis based on our project, and we would be using the spreadsheet. It's quite amazing that this time we can have tools that we can quickly use to do an analysis properly. So we will try and use the spreadsheet to do an analysis. Then we'll also demonstrate how to use MassQDA for our qualitative data analysis. So that's text analysis, and also do mixed method analysis as well. And we'll be ending this week by discussing data auditing and supervision on its own, which in essence means as an M&E officer, you can actually be contracted to conduct data auditing and supervision. And also in an M&E system, a component of it, if we still remember from a week one, a component of it is data auditing and supervision. So yes, so that's what we'll be doing this week. So this is unit one which is us trying to plan our data analysis. So this will not be restricted to quantitative data analysis, but we will just move with the flow and have proper discussion around this. But in this unit, I hope that we'll be able to manage numeric and non-numeric data, whether it's quantitative or qualitative responses from beneficiaries. Also, we should be able to understand the steps and principles to process quantitative and qualitative data. Then also, prepare your instrument for proper analysis would be great. And there's a task at the end of this unit in which you're supposed to prepare the instrument that you've already developed in week 2. So you're supposed to now prepare it, collect responses live, which means, yes, you're supposed to send this to 20 people to respond to your instrument, and then you would now prepare those responses for analysis. So yeah, and yes, I will be discussing 5 key things. That one is identifying the survey itself, which is the questionnaire that you have prepared, which is the first step actually. So these are like steps, but not necessarily like it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You could think about what happens when you are about to take your instrument to the field. So start from there. So identifying the survey, then also developing a coding plan or coding your questionnaire, then also understanding the measurement skills. We call it skills, yeah, and this is actually being used by different softwares as well. Understanding different skills in which each question stands for. Then we will look at our data analysis grid here, which is something you're supposed to even prepare before your instrument, which is here. Now we're talking about a questionnaire before it gets to the field. And also prepare data entry and cleaning. So just to mention that this first 4 actually happens, or can happen, or should happen before you take your instrument to the field. Either it's a questionnaire, either it's an interview guide. While this last part happens after you've gotten back from the field, it's important for us to take note of that. So what do we mean by planning data? Yeah, I've already mentioned it. So once you have prepared your instruments, just like we have in here. So this was the instrument we prepared in week 2, right? Yeah, you might see that I've added 1 or 2 things in it. Yes, just for the purpose of illustration in the class. So you need to make sure that this instrument you're actually taking to the field will meet up with proper analysis standards. And in doing that means that, yes, you have to come back to this instrument and look at each question that you have in here. And one way we normally do this, which I would say is the first step, is to find a partner, one of a co-worker, and tell the person to submit this instrument, so that when he submits it, either as something that is self-administered with your colleague, or you want to send it as a link, then he fills it, so that you can understand how the analysis of your instrument will be. That's a key step. It's a key important step in you preparing your instrument for data analysis. So and that's what we're talking about here. Like, yes, before you would start saying you're analyzing or entering data, you should be able to do that. Test this instrument with a colleague. So what happens most times is that this instrument will still end up in the digital format. Yes, currently we have different software tools that can actually be used to analyze data. So it's important that we are able to understand the language or get this instrument in the language in which those softwares will understand. So Google Spreadsheet has made it easier. So I mean, things that normally happen before in the days of start. So I mean, you have Starter, you have SPSS that you can use in running your analysis and all that. So you are preparing your data set for upload in those platforms. That's what it means. So we'll do a demonstration in Unit 2 of how to use Google Spreadsheets. Anyways, yes, like we said, this course is not about inferential statistics, a whole lot of data analysis. It's just to introduce us to it and how to do it using a less rigorous method. So yeah, so that's the essence of. So it's about you preparing this for preparing this for digitalization. So let's dive into some of this. So the first thing is you need to identify the survey itself. Yes, it's important that you are able to, and what we mean by that is, never mind that I'm using survey with questionnaire. Apologies for that. So what we're saying is identifying the questionnaire, which means, so this is the questionnaire actually in PDF format. So I mean, if this is going to the field, this is what perhaps enumerators or myself as someone that self-administered would want it to be. So one thing we normally do is to make sure we are able to so in creating this we actually did not put it in. So what we're saying in essence is just like you saying like just giving an ID. So let me quickly see if I can add it to this. So so you say questionnaire ID number. So like a short answer fits into that, right? Wait a second. So questionnaire ID. So something like that, and yes, it's a number. I want it as a number and it's required. So put it here. So what we mean by this is if you have something like this, so let's just try a little bit to preview it. Yeah, so question ID. So when you put this as 1, so it means you're saying that this is your number 1 question. If you're admitting it to a so for instance, a sample size of 200 people, so you want to name each and every one of those. So we're talking about in the paper format now. Yeah, I mean, you could do that, but if you're using the digital method, either by using Kobo Collect tools, Google Spreadsheets, Google Forms, which is Google Forms rather, then you do not need to do this because automatically it does that. And I'm going to show us what that means in a bit. Yeah, so you need to identify each one of your and what that does for you also is that it allows you to know the number of people that would have responded to your questionnaire. Imagine that you're going to give this to enumerators who are supposed to go to the field and get the responses. So it means that you would be able to identify the numbers that was responded to, because if you do, let's for example, you could actually do for instance 400, right? 400 questionnaires and you take to the field, but when your enumerators come back, maybe you were able to get 300 respondents. So you knowing this allows you to know, oh, out of 400, 300 responded. So it's as easy as that. So that's what it allows you to be able to understand. And also one thing it does for you is that it allows you to quickly talk with your enumerators to do more, to get more respondents. They've been because enumerators definitely would want to report to you. The way we design working with enumerators properly might be reporting after 24 hours. So there's a reporting platform where you report what you've done for the day. So if you're saying that, oh, it seems enumerators are doing 100, you will need to encourage them, or you want to encourage them to do more. So it allows you to be able to do that. So, I mean, having that number of questionnaire is very, very important for your deployment in order to encourage your enumerators and also to speak to your stakeholders, maybe the commissioner of the evaluation, like that, oh, this is where we are currently, we still need more people, can you please encourage the beneficiaries to respond and all that. So it's a way to also make beneficiaries respond to surveys as well. Yes. So the second thing is for you to have a coding plan, and having a coding plan as so I mean, since some of what you have in your questionnaires, some are qualitative, so you need to put it in a quantitative format. Just for example, also, I mean, in your statistical tools, having a heading like this might not necessarily work. So you want to abbreviate what this question means in your software. So I mean, most of the softwares for analysis, for you to be able to analyze properly, you should be able to shorten your questions, and we'll get to that during the demonstration that we'll do before the end of this class. So and that's what we call, and it also allows you to identify the variables that are within your questionnaire. That's also very important, and there are 4 steps in doing that, in having your coding. And think about this, that this is actually not so it's a paper format, just like you have here. It's in paper format. It's important to understand the paper format. I know that most of us now we are now online, but I mean, if you ask yourself, a whole lot of evaluation that is going on, especially in the developing world, most of them are still in the paper format. You still recruit enumerators, they still go to the field and collect responses from people. And also there's a reason to that. I mean, if you're using technology tools, yeah, there's the use of technology tools, but you might be spending a whole lot. You will need to build capacity of a whole lot of people on how to use the technology. And also in people responding to such, you're not also sure as well. When you compare technology to just going to the field yourself and administering the questionnaire. So for example, the first point here is that yes, you need to assign names, which is short names to each of the variables that you have. And this allows you to know which one is a variable, which one is an integer. So things like that might be necessary for for what we're talking about. So, for example, I could, so let's use the other version here. So, for each of what I have here, then because I can't write on it, so I can say 1. So this is how we put it in the note, right? I can call this decode. So I have a name, and I can do this as 2f name, which means first name, right? And my surname. Let me comment on surname. Comment. That's question 3, and I put as f name, s name rather. So just something for me to be able to identify each. If I have a notepad, I would have loved to just put them on notepads, and that's how you can do it. So you can see for gender. So instead of having something like this, you have for gender. So, but I'm more particular about my variables, right? Age range, is that a variable? Maybe no. So remember these indicators and these questions. Can you tell us how many times you have used the chlorine you got from a program to purify your water? This is an outcome statement actually. So what I'll do is to, yes, this is a variable, and I can add it as variable 1, right? And most of these variables are those data that would actually be a reflection of your indicators. Yes. So think about that. So what would you say about the statement that distributors of chlorine explain very well how you properly use chlorine part 2? What would you say about the statement that distributors of chlorine, so we're asking if the perception about those that distributed chlorine in the community. So this is also a variable. I can call it v2, right? So, and I go to 10. Yes, so this is child. So this is child visit to number of times, average number of times the child visits the hospital as an indicator. So with this is another variable, so I can have v3, and yep. So this is my qualitative question in improving the program and all that. So I mean, this is how I first try and name my. So I particularly know v1, v2, v3 is very important that you can do that as well. So you can also define the variable labels. So this is mostly important, and it's attached to your header, your questions, the questions that are asked. So because I've done some of it already, I'm going to remove this. I'm actually going to remove this question ID because I just use that anyways. Okay, so let me just close this, then I'll leave, I come back here. So this was what I was working on before. So I've already done what so like you need to shorten when I'll be doing cleaning at the end of this unit. So I'm going to do the same thing. So this is what we're trying to talk about, like reducing, shortening each one of them, gender, here phone number, right, which is question 5. So I'm only putting this as a note here. If I were using phone, if I were using the main paper itself. So this is how I write on the main paper and put I'm going to show us the electronic version. But this is just for us to 6 age. Put it inside comments. This is number of children. I could just say children. Norm 7. So it's just trying to make sure I'm able to instead of this V1, I can also edit this as well and just say so this is 8, right? I just say CHL use, which is chlorine use, right? So let's look at this and edit this. I say DIS percep. So this is distributor's perception, right? And I put it as 9. The spa. So I'm just trying to shorten it, and then I have 10, which is edit 10 hospital. So I can have it this way, and I can also (11) improvement. So I have all this in codes, and that's that. So same thing I should have done for my either in even the digitalized format also. So but so just showing how to do it on the paper itself. So that's the variable labels that we've done. Then we need to identify the measurement skills. The skills, we will discuss about that in some minutes. It's important because different softwares use different skills. They use a particular skill. In fact, they now have almost the same skill for SATA, for SPSS as well. I think those two, that I know, uses those skills, either nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio skills. And remember in week 2 unit 1, when we were discussing the categories of data, this is almost the same thing as what we talked about then, but because different software tools have decided to use different names, so you now have a continuous data being called another name. You have a discrete data being called something else. So, these are some of the. This is just the simple way to explain it. Yes, and that's the third one. So, which means in essence that you're supposed to go ahead and. So, for example, let me go back to the documents. I'm supposed to identify each scale that I have on my sheet, on this questionnaire rather. So for example, my first name, what does that mean actually? First name actually falls under nominal. I can cancel and just put it here and edit and say nominal. So these are always qualitative, and when you think about nominal, just think about name. So it's always in name format. So yes, think about it that way, as that type of data. So yes, nominal. Surname too is going to be nominal. So gender, which is actually categoric, which is also descriptive enough. Well, we'll see if it's ordinal or nominal. Is it a name or is it something categorizing? So you need to think about that. We would explain more of that. So that's just what we mean by so we don't jump, by actually identifying measurement scale for each one of them. So we explain that on the measurement scales, which we are coming to in a bit. Yes, so this is after you've done that, then you want to think about, yes, the actual coding that we all know about. Let's wait a second. So let's go back here again. So the actual coding that we do know about. So instead of and which means we coding things that are not in numbers, because the softwares will only see things in numbers. So for example, this 21 to 30. That's not quantitative. It's not a text format. But when you start having things like gender, then you need to actually code it so that those softwares can see it in numbers. And what does this mean? It means that you now decide, even before you go to the field, that of course you cannot definitely code first name or surname because you do not have an alternative to that. You could code a discrete code with 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, this could be coded, and also that we just used A, B, C equals. So it's going to be the name of a district. So think about that. So which means you need to code each and every one of this. So what we can do instead of, so for the response, I'm just putting this here, edit, because you have it on a paper. So A means 1, B means 2, C means 3, and D means 4, right? So that's what we refer to as the actual coding, so that the software or someone that is entering it, and we're still talking about the paper format stuff, someone that wants to enter it will enter in this format. So you have this as a copy. That's what it means. So you're not forgetting out anything on the codes. Then as it concerns this, I can come here, also edit, and I say female. If you like, will be 0. Computer says in zeros and one, so that's just the meaning. Male is 1. Then far not to say will be coded as 2, right? So if you are any data entry person, he already knows this. Also, this is in numbers, so you don't need to bother yourself about that. And this also you will code as well as 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as well. Then strongly disagree, you also do this 1, 2, 3, 4, and this also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's what we refer to as the actual coding itself. So let's discuss measurement skills. Remember that we said yes, you should be able to also identify the measurement skills for each of the questions that you have. So nominal data, like I said, I normally remember this using name. So when I have name, anything in form of name means nominal to me. So for example, if let's go to the question here. So districts, if it had been names, let's say this was Lubumbashi, this was Djibouti, this was Addis Ababa. So if they have names, that's nominal data. That's what it means. Also, things like female, male, it's also nominal data as well. So those are examples of what we refer to as nominal data. So they are just used in labeling several variables that do not have any numbers. So they do not have any quantitative value, no quantitative value to them. So that's just what it means. Like I said, a good way to, they are always in names. So think about countries, the hair color. Once you cannot assign quantitative values to them, then values, so they are referred to as nominal. You have ordinal data. So remember that ordinal data are always used for now qualitative characteristics, but that have a quantitative, so they now have a quantitative value attached to them. But I mean, you cannot actually differentiate between each one of them. It's something you cannot differentiate at all. What the difference is. In male and female, you can actually differentiate. In a country, you can actually differentiate, but here you cannot differentiate. For example, here, very unsatisfied and someone unsatisfied, you cannot differentiate what's in between them. So, which means you cannot necessarily quantify what is in between them. So, it's important to know the difference between. One way I normally use to differentiate them is knowing that yes, the nominal is the name of a place, animal, or thing, while the ordinal data are always used for perception, attitude. So when you see less important, mostly important, somewhat disagree, disagree, very satisfied or unsatisfied, just like you have here, then you think about it as ordinal data. So we have the interval data and the ratio data. Yes, so if you remember, continuous data and discrete data. So in here, what we mean is that the ratio data is actually the continuous data. Yes, it's actually the continuous data. So when you have we start having 5.7 height in terms of height. So I mean, they're continuous data and do not have an absolute zero. So that's what ratio data means. While the interval data is on the other side, they are constants. Constant whole numbers. And these two actually are always quantitative. They are always quantitative, while nominal and ordinal are qualitative. So that's the difference. In our question here, zoom in. So you can see what we're trying to differentiate in here: age, number of children in the household. Of course, they cannot be 3.5 children. You can only have 3 children or 4. So this is an example of what type of data. If you're in this class, so in the classroom, this is your first multiple choice question. So what kind of measure of skill is this question 7? Yes, so that's the first multiple question you need to answer. So what kind of data measurement skill does this fall into? So I was just and those are the two skills that you actually have that is within this questionnaire. So that's how we differentiate this for different kinds of skill. The ratio one, which is the one that is actually related to continuous data. It has an absolute zero. They are not in whole numbers. So you have heights, which can be 5.7. You have weight, which could be 6.5 kilogram. Time, sales, 3 naira 20 kobo or $10.20. So think about that as ratio skills, while interval data are whole numbers. So would not necessarily have 2, which an example is what we have in our questionnaire, especially these 2 as well. So yes, that explains the measurement skills. And the other thing we'll talk about is this analysis grid, which is quite very important. Before you take your instrument to the field, it's important that you have this, and I'm going to explain what this analysis grid means. So on the column, you have your relevant evaluation question. This, like I said, will be treating in week 4 of the class. Relevant evaluation question, and it doesn't evaluation just means what you're trying to answer as it regards the results that you want. So it could be the extent at which your activities turned into outputs. So it could be that. It could be the extent at which you want to look at how much was spent to get from activities to inputs. It could be that. It could be that you want to measure what works for a particular target audience. So in terms of relevancy, so it could be all that. That's what is included in this column. And remember that for each of those result chain, which we did in we did that in week 1, you have your indicators that is named. So you can see an example here in which the indicators are actually named, right? So one thing you might need to consider when naming your indicators, in fact, you can go and do it now, but I think it's important, is to always assign numbers to each of your indicators. What this means, for example, here is that, yes, in community A, there's going to be an output. So this is a final outcome, call it outcome indicator 1.1, or output if you want. That's what it means. So I mean, if you have several ones, you can see the second one as final outcome 1.2. So change in effective actions market women undertake using toolkit provided by, of course, this is an outcome indicator because we're talking about what actions the beneficiaries are taking, and this is this is also action taken by, so which is a change in behavior of people. So this is a final outcome 1.1, final outcome 1.2 of a particular project, and the instrument is on the third column. Instrument means that, yes, the name of the questionnaire, just like you have here currently. So let's see. Yes, just like you have here, water waste chlorine distribution program survey. So if this was going to different category of people, maybe you might have different names for it. That's what it means. So, but you can see that now where this becomes interesting is that each question, so you have questions that are actually answering the indicators and also answering the results questions you're expecting. So once you are able to build this, it means that so you don't just create an instrument. While creating your instrument, and I think we discussed this in week 2 when we were creating our instrument, actually, that you create instrument based on your indicators because you need data that would inform those indicators, and that's what we did for some of the variables that are here. These are variables that are looking at, I can remember vividly, this is looking at the outcome stage of yes, the usage. So the usage by the community members of chlorine to purify their water. Which one? So we want to understand. So the change that is here, like, oh, these people have changed, they are now using the chlorine water to purify. But here we're trying to look at the extent at which this happened. That could be a question. So that's why you're seeing the frequency, which we'll use now then to now compare. So it's important to note that. So you put each question for each indicator it is going to be answering for, and that's what this means in here. So you need to prepare this even before going to the field, so you already know, and this is helpful when you're reporting. It allows you, especially when you're reporting results, so it allows you to quickly come and discuss, yes, which part of your indicator, and this is what we'll be looking at also in week 4 as well in reporting. So it guides you on what you're reporting on. So the analysis grade is very important, even if it's a qualitative. For instance, if it's qualitative and you have qualitative indicators here, and remember that you're supposed to get this from an interview, for example. So you have it also in this format as well. So in reporting results, what some people do is they extend to another column and write the results here for analysis and all that. So but that makes it an important part of what you need in preparation for your analysis. It is not when you are finished analyzing or when you're analyzing, you now start trying to merge your question with the indicators, with the question is answering. No. So it's important you design this before your instrument gets to the field as well. So lastly, is this entering and cleaning. So I mean, this is an example of what I just did, and this is just what we do in when the tool itself, when you collect responses on the Google form, using the Google form as an example. So in order just to explain for some of us, which I mean, we will discuss this in week 4 when we're talking about the phases of an evaluation, which is talking about the processes. If you have 5 enumerators, 7 enumerators that collects data in the field, assuming they have gone out to collect this data in the field. Don't forget, this will definitely change, right? Except if each district code. So for instance, this district code might be the code each enumerator. So which means if we have had 4 enumerators, for example, we will name each one with this code. So there's enumerator A, there's B, there's C, there's D. So you need to pick which one he is so that for us to identify. Another way to do it is to come here. And so if you're using an enumerator, this is important. And instead of a questionnaire ID, it will be an enumerator ID, right? So enumerators are supposed to impute their ID. You would have given each and every one of them an ID, maybe A001, B002, because for instance, you could have their projects here. I mean, their projects we've carried out with over 100 enumerators. So we need to give each one of them an ID. So once they take this to the field in the paper format, they are supposed to now every day after coming back from the field, they're supposed to upload the question using this in their various rooms. So they will have this as a question to enter into. So they enter the responses gotten from the field, and what now happens is that yes, we are able to see the responses directly in an analysis tool, which is this Google form. Actually, we use it for analysis as well. So I'm going to show us. So I'll close this now, and also so we delete this because it wasn't there earlier on. So but just to explain that yes, you must consider that if you're using the enumerator. So but we are assuming that yes, I'm going to self-administer this. I've gone out. So now, which is something related to the task 1, is that you have gone out, you're sending this out to 20 people for them to respond to this. So for example, let me just use this now. I would just need, if you're using this tool, which is a great tool, you should think about this responses that you have here. Just take a look at it. Assuming I've sent to the first person so we're supposed to send to 20 people. So it could be you. That's just the hint. Not necessarily like you can send to but you can send to your colleagues if you want. But let's just quickly fill this up. So I'm just going to use not a real name. We're not saying you should go to the field and and get a real name. So does anybody know why this is optional, the phone number? If you know why it's optional, can you comment on the video? That will be something interesting to discuss about in a comment box. And that's the second multiple choice. No, we will not put that as a multiple choice question, but let's discuss why you have a phone number here, but it's optional actually. What are the reasons or why you have it optional? So let's assume the people you've sent it to are now completing this, and this is a kid. When the field they've gotten this, and watch out, this was submitted. And that's how the enumerators could also be enumerators anyway. So, but I mean, so this is just what I wanted to explain, that this automatically shows you in real time the number of responses that you are getting. So as it moves from 10 to 15 to 20 to 30, you keep getting the number of responses from people. So back to our slide. So I mean, you're supposed to clean what you get. So I will show us what you're supposed to. So let's just continue with this. This is what you have as the person that created this. So you go to responses. If you had 100 responses or 1,000, let's ignore that. So this is how you see what people are submitting, right? You just click here and you say, yeah, create a new spreadsheet. So you can actually click on create, and it's going to create a new spreadsheet for you, and you'll be seeing this. This is also yours, is with you, and you own it. This is how it becomes interesting, right? So I mean, if you have 1,000 respondents, you will see 1,000 here, and you have a timestamp. So I have done my own 20. So I mean, you can just flip back. So you're supposed to have 20 of this. That is what it means. And what happened? So you can see all this. It means that you can be going back and forth looking at this, but you need a shorthand code for you to quickly know what's on that page. And that's what you have actually here, where this has been. So remember how we actually turned our remember how we started coding our variables here. So that's what you're now seeing here, and that's what we're supposed to do to this as a task for this unit. Yes, that's what we'll be doing, and you need 20 responses. That's what it means. So I'll go ahead and send mine to 20 people. So I'll go ahead and send mine to 20 people, and there's some things you should notice here. In this type of spreadsheet, you can still see the somewhat agree and all that. You could code it, you might not code it, you might leave it in Google form. It does analysis without you putting it in codes, and I mean the options anyways. But you can also do it by finding and replacing female, male, 01. Then one interesting thing is this column where you have ID. You can see that. So let's go to my own responses from 20 people. So I have it here. So actually, this is a so this has already been done before. So not necessarily. I mean, I've given it to 20 people. They've responded, and this is what I have. So you're supposed to have this as your task for this unit, and now clean and make it ready for analysis. That's what we're talking about. So this is where, don't forget, this has gotten to the field already. You've made sure everything is properly done. There's little you can do here if things are messed up on your instrument, but you could still do more in terms of entering by people. So for example, and that is what we mean by cleaning, making sure the rows and columns are intact, making sure you're not missing out on any data, making sure there's no repetition. Yes, making sure there's no repetition. That can be common when you have enumerators or even yourself. So you could actually include Linda Adil twice. If you run analysis that way, it means you're wrong. It means that there's a double entry which you didn't consider or take cognizance of. So this is our 11 responses. I could use my time. So you have a timestamp. So normally what we do when we want to prepare this for proper analysis, yes, it is in this format. What I'll do is just make a copy. I could make a copy, yes, so that I have the original. That's very important. Even when you collect any data at all or download any data sets, just make a copy of it so that the original is just in the waiting and you can work on this. So this is your unit 1. So I can put this as unit. So week 3, unit 1 task, right? So what I'll do, let me see if I can. So if I have this, I will do a second copy, create another sheet. Add a sheet rather. Sometimes this can be. So let me just add another sheet, and what I can do, okay, I can just make a copy of this, duplicate, so I can duplicate it. So I have this, I leave this also as the original format, then I come here and I start removing what I do not want. I do not actually want this timestamp, so that's gone. I do not want, I don't have anything to do with so yes, I mean, if you, one thing you need to look, like I said, duplicates, double entry, you need to look out for that so you don't have that. It's very important. So I can what I can do is click on this, I go to data, I look for duplicates if there's going to be any. So if I say select all, so all the rows and all the columns, no duplicate rows were found, so I'm cool and okay. So then once I'm able to ascertain that, cool, one thing I'll do is insert one to the left and create an ID based on the respondents. So I create respondent 1 So I can use any code, respond 1, respond 2. Then I do not want to waste time. I just do this, and here I go. So I can confirm that I have 20 respondents. 20. No duplicates. So again, I can check through again. Blah, blah, blah. I can see that some phones are not being entered here, black, white spaces. I mean, if you see some questions, this happen in the real field where things are missed out, questions are missed out. So, but you cannot quickly know that with this form until you now number them. So you need to number each one the way they are. So this is where it was important at first for you to. So you know that we have a shorting format already. So so which means you need to rename each. So I'll do this one, this code or the code. So what I did earlier on is what I'm now doing here. Ordinarily, I do not need this tool anymore. I'm going to delete it. Yes, I do not need it. Why? I need to protect them. I don't need. I have an ID that I can use, so there's no point having them their name here. So that means I'll take question 2 and 3 from it. So that's what it means. Then I go to question. I think I have question 4, right? So, some people still leave the name if you want, so please feel free. I think so. This is this I can also delete as well. There's a reason why this is important, and like I said, please comment. Put in the comment on the platform why you think the founder is important or why you think you should engage. So I look forward to your comments and I can respond to the comments. I'm going to delete it here as well. Delete column. Yeah, I don't need it. This is question 6. So I can say 6 age, then 7. Children number, child number. Then I have question 8 as chlorine use. Put it as. Let me just put this as. So I have it this way. Then 9. Question 9 was talking about distributors. Perception. So beneficiaries' perception about those that distributed or how it was distributed. It's 9, then 10. So this is child visit to the hospital. Then 11. Beneficiary perception. I could put it there. Although, let me go and check so that we have the same thing. We already did this. CHLIMP, chlorine. What's that? Improvement. Okay. So it's important. I mean, you would definitely want it to be the same thing as what you have on your. This is child OSP number 10. Child OSP. Yep. And 9 is what? It's good I came back here so that we're on this part. Oh, it's this part here. And 8 is what? Clue use. So it's the same thing. So I mean, it should just be the same thing. So I've cleaned. Like I said, the ones I removed, you can leave it. Just maybe because you want to show somebody. But yes, so we've actually cleaned, did a proper entry. And I mean, if you want to take this to other softwares and want to do your coding, it's just for you to find and replace. So for instance, female and male that we have here, we coded it. We said there was going to be a coding, for example. So what we are saying is that some software tools will only see numeral figures, numbers, numeric. They're always in numeric. So which means all these columns will be in numeric. So for example, female and male. Let's see what we say we'll replace female with in our code plan. So this is our code plan. So female is 0, male is 1, prefer not to say 2. So what we'll just do is Ctrl H, I guess. So find female and replace with 0. Was that done? Let me take a look at it again. Find female, replace with 0. Match entire. Yeah, I mean, replace. On all sheets, let me see, did they say on all sheet? Yeah, just replace all. Let's see, just for the purpose. Yeah, so you can see all this has been turned to 0, 0, 0, 0. So then if you want your male, Ctrl H, male with 1. So I mean, if there's anything remaining here, then it will be the third option, which is prefer not to say, but not body said prefer not. So I mean, you can think about that for all these other ones. You could do this as well like that. So, but that's just to show us that you can turn this into codes here. But I'll Ctrl Z back to a proper. And so this is what you need to finish up. This is the assignment we need you to put in the. So once you're done with this, you just upload it and turn it in as your task 1. So that's it on preparing your data for analysis. On the other part, we will discuss how we're going to be able to just analyze this in a simple way and be able to create some insight as well, um, in Unit 2. So, there's some references always inside our classroom. So, all these books are actually in our classroom. So, you'll see them as essential reading, especially from last week when we started data. So, you have some of this book in the classroom, which you can take a look at. They're very important. And I think in your classroom um, for week 3, there's this worksheet which are actually quite important, which we normally use. The worksheet is like is a checklist. My offline check. I'm not offline. Boom. So let me try and refresh this. See. Boom, 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 boom. So the checklists are very important. So you see yes or no. It's something for you to check yourself on. So, and have you anticipated the comparison you want to make ahead of time in your analysis plan? Yes. So this is very important. It's a very important part of this, and which in essence means that in all your questions you want to compare, right? You have a question. So, for example, so how many mil will have used chlorine in the last 1 week? So things like that. In which district would they have used more chlorine, or they are now using more chlorine? Or is it that you already have a baseline for these people and you want to compare it with what you have now? So these are very important things you need to think about, like having your insight already before the main analysis. So for instance, your indicators will show a whole lot, like you trying to know the number of, how many of this within this my sample size, which is 20, uh, would have used chlorine in the last 1 week, for instance, or to purify water in the last 1 week. So things like that. I think it's important that you need to think about. Have you tested out analysis before collecting data? So, like I said, before you take your instrument to the field, you need to be able to find someone, 3 people is enough for you to give to them to just submit their responses, so you could see how this looks like. Have you cleaned the data to ensure accuracy? So, which is what we just did. Correct invalid values when possible or coded as missing. So, like I said, when you have spaces, when people, so if you, I know question 4 is important. When it's space there, then you need to call the enumerator to confirm from the beneficiary again, or if it's a question that allows you to skip and the person isn't skipping and answers that question. If there's a logic that the person should not answer that question but answers it, then you need to think about the space. So that's where data cleaning becomes hectic. So think about that. Correct invalid values when possible. Make sure they are not fitting the kind of data you have. Have you addressed each evaluation question, which was what I showed us here. So trying to know the match for each question is totally and very important. Broken down data to answer further questions within the team, and if you have understood the data as thoroughly as necessary. So these are checklists we normally use also in-house for us to, before taking instruments to the field, and also after bringing instrument back from the field. They're very, very important to think about. Yes. So if you like to join the class as well, You can register. It's an online class, and it's a 6 weeks course. So feel free, or maybe you have a group. You can email training@cloneshouse.com, or yeah, give them a shout out in that phone call. I will see you in the next unit, which is about quantitative data analysis. So we're going to be analyzing this data in this Google Form tool. And yeah, I mean, and I hope you will find it useful. Have a good time and enjoy your day.